Hey guys, my name is Brandon and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you like what you see in here, you're more than welcome to hit the subscribe button so you stay notified every time I upload a new video. Okay, let's get straight on with today's video. Hey everyone and welcome back to Is That More Brandon. So in today's video I'm going to be doing a review to the 6th episode of The Apprentice. So without further ado, we're going to see who the next person was to be fired from the process. So, at the beginning of the episode, on the boys team, so Team Supreme, we had Maura, Sam, Flo, Phil, Verdi and Paul. And on the girls team, Nexus, we had Trey, Steve, Feluso, Raj, Noor and Rachel. So they are the final 12 as of now. In terms of the next challenge, they were going to the Savoy Hotel in central London, and Sam basically explained that the pressure was on for both her and Maura, because I think they were the only two that hadn't been project manager as of yet. Or the only two girls that hadn't been project manager as of yet. And Steve said to Phil that he could picture him in a chef's hat, and with Phil saying, yep, 2.0 back in the kitchen again, because obviously of his, failed kitchen task previously. And then Sam basically said to Verdi and Phil that it seems like both of them have collected enough stamps for a free coffee, the amount of times they've been in the bad cafe, the losers cafe. Lord Sugar obviously wasn't present in person for this particular task, but he did send in a virtual video which Tim and Karen explained for the housemates to, for the candidates to obviously go and watch. Oh, fuck's sake. Lord Sugar wasn't actually in person for this particular task, but he did send in a video to Tim and Karen, who asked the candidates to obviously watch a virtual video, and in it it's a little virtual version of Lord Sugar, and it was kind of like an iPad, but it was like a 3D augmented reality kind of world. And he basically explained the cereal market is worth over £2.6 million. Toys, treats, and obviously including things like augmented reality are things that are now just a common thing. And he basically said he wanted each of the teams to create a new cereal aged for audiences between the ages of 6 and 8, and have some form of AR augmented reality experience. And they need to create a brand, host a launch event, and also try and sell to clients as well. So for the boys team, Phil put himself forward straight away, saying he has 2 kids that have gone through those age groups, and Sam also put herself forward saying that she's got kids maybe a little bit younger than that age group, but she still has kids and she kind of also still understands that market. She's very children related and she knows that she'll do well in the task, and also she is both healthy and fun. For the girls team, it was Steve that put himself forward for the corporate task. He said it seems a bit corporate for this time round, and he's done a bit of branding in the past, and his idea for the cereal was to create different superheroes for kids, so have a different type of superhero for each type of child that there is out there. Rachel explained that this has potentially been done before. Steve questioned whether this has been done on cereal. I guess it has been done with other things, but has it been done with the cereal? And Raj basically jumped in saying it could be a hit or a miss idea, depending on how well or not well it obviously goes. For the boys team, Paul actually jumped in and said an idea could be planets of the solar system. Maura had an idea, potentially something to do with the Arctic, something to do with penguins and polar bears, for example. And Verdi basically said that those ideas were quite limited. And Flo said regarding the Arctic idea that there's not really many colours, it's usually just whites and blues for the Arctic. And then Sam basically was sitting there, not being able to make a decision, having to decide between something healthy or something space related, and she went with the Arctic idea. So she and Maura obviously went on the designing team because it was Maura's idea, and then Sam obviously went through with that. And then she basically said that she could see an idea of a character of like a polar bear, but make the polar bear look a bit human. So that was kind of her brief there. So an animal, but make the animal look human. For the girls team, to create the character, it was Noor, Feluso and Trey. And the sub-team leader was Noor, because I think she put herself forward this time to obviously take the lead for this. And then for Steve, he also said that they wanted to create some sort of human character. And Raj basically said some sort of Tomb Raider-like Lara Croft character, but with a strong female idea or some sort of idea representation. And then Steve added he wanted it to be edgy, but he wanted it to also be fun as well, because you've got to remember it's for kids, but we also need to make it look a bit unique and different too. For the boys team, Maura was the sub-team leader with both Verdi and Paul, and Sam basically said healthy, fun vibes is kind of what we're looking for with the branding. And then Paul basically explained to the people he was in the car with that they technically had the wrong target market, and they tend to go off animals at this age, and Maura said it's a smart but interesting idea, so they could have a smart but interesting polar bear as their brand logo. For the girls team, Raj basically said that in terms of the ingredients, they wanted to start with hoops for the base of the cereal, and I think both teams here had like a quick introduction session, and professionals came to kind of show them how to make cereal, how much of each gram of type of food or ingredient you need. And yeah, so for the girls team, it was, again, I think it was the same three, Norfalusa and Trey, obviously making the cereal. And then, yeah, Raj basically said they wanted hoops for the cereal, and then raspberry also worked as well. I think Rachel was actually joined in with the cereal, so I think at this point it was Raj, Noor and Rachel, I believe, who were making the cereal. So yeah, they basically said raspberry works, and Rachel said that they just need to come to make a decision. In the end, they went for hoops, raspberry, milk chocolate chip and dried apples. For the boys team, they wanted to have boulders, which would be like the snowballs in terms of the cereal. Sam said there was a strong recommendation from the professional of using 50 grams, and Phil basically said let's add less, taste it first, and we can add more if we want to. So again, straight away, Flo jumped in saying, look, we should go with the recommendation. If they're recommending 50 grams of whatever and we're putting in 3, it's obviously not going to taste like cereal. No matter if it tastes nice or not, it's not going to taste like the recommended product. So I think here was a little bit of a red flag from Phil, not listening to instructions, but I guess it was also a bit of a red flag for Sam, kind of not letting him listen to instructions and kind of still agreeing to go with his idea anyway. And then, yeah, in terms of the character, obviously Maura, Paul and Verdi, they were creating some sort of Arctic prince. Maura wanted to have a t-shirt on him, rucksack, a crown with no trousers. And then Paul basically said that he hopes the idea is not too childish. For the girls team, Noor came up with the idea of having like a superhero. I think Trey came up with the name Megabella, and Noor just said, oh my god, I love her already. Falusa said potentially orange t-shirt could work with a red cape, and then Noor actually said no, we don't want a cape. And then after reflecting on the logo and the branding, Trey said that they should have got the character with her hands on her hips rather than just kind of flapping in the air or wherever they were. In terms of Steve and his team, he basically said he expected the character to be a little bit edgier. And Flo from the girls team, Flo from the boys team said she's not really sure what the crown of the character is for, with Sam saying that someone like her child, for example, could say it's like a princess polar bear rather than superhero polar bear. And then again with Paul, sticking with the same team, he said that Maura's idea was potentially for the other characters to meet characters along the way. And I think he kind of replied saying it could be a bit of a boring idea, you need to have some sort of singing and some sort of dancing, which I think he ended up putting himself for anyway. And then, boys team as of now, so you've got team leader, or project manager as Sam, and then her sub-team leader Maura. And for the girls team leader is Noor, and then, team leader is, project manager is Steve, and their sub-team leader is Noor. For the girls team, Noor was doing some acting as the superhero, and she was muddling up her lines, but she was still able to kind of be in character. Eventually, she got to the end of what she needed to say, and then, that was the film and done for the girls. And then for the boys team, Paul actually decided to dress up as the polar bear, and Verdi was obviously director again, so he unsuccessfully was the director in one of the previous tasks, but he decided to step forward as the director again. He basically explained that for the polar bear character, Paul was completely in his element, and he said that Paul smashed it at the end of it. And then with the text, so Sam, Flo and Phil were obviously doing that, and Sam basically asked for a bit more crunchy text, and Phil jumped in and said, well, yeah, obviously with the word crunch, can it actually be read? Are we actually happy with it? And I think here Sam was trying to change lots of little details, adding a little bit of wording here, or moving it a little bit to the centre, or moving it a little bit up, or whatever. And then again, also Flo jumped in saying we just need to crack on, those small details could come at the end. So I don't know here if Sam was kind of lucky or unlucky. Lucky in the fact that both Phil and Flo just wanted to just get on with it, or unlucky in the fact that because both of them are very kind of just, I feel like Phil and Flo are both very good, very on it, very just want to get stuff done kind of people, that they were kind of just pushing her a little bit to just make a decision without her having enough time to actually think, or, you know, whatever. So I'm not really sure whether to feel sorry for Sam here, or feel sorry for Flo and Phil for her, you know, being a little bit slow on this part of the task. And then back to the girls team. So Rachel was adding, or she wanted to add different super hoops to the logo with Raj and Steve. And then Steve was thinking potentially to have a border on the letters. And again, I think it was similar to the other team, kind of like a mirror conversation. Rachel was basically saying to Steve, look, we can't think about adding all these little tiny little details. We need to get the proper logo, proper branding, proper things done, and just get it sent away. And it seemed like both Raj and Rachel were doing all the talking with the ideas. Steve, I don't think he was just sitting there. I think he wasn't actually able to get his words in. And whenever he was about to say something or about to suggest something, one of the girls just kind of spoke about something else. And then at the end of it, Steve basically said, look, the colours are okay, we can make it work. So I think it was a very basic design, but they did manage to get a design at least. I think both teams did. So it was just working out, yeah, one team had a more complex design and one team had a design that you couldn't really tell it was breakfast, but you just have a superhero on the front of it. And then for the boys team, Sam basically said she needed to find a bowl to put on the logo. Again, Flo said, look, we don't really have time to find a bowl, let's just add some passion fruit and banana. So I think it was actually the boys team that didn't have a bowl, so it was the boys team that, you know, we didn't really know if it was cereal or if it was just promoting fruit. For the girls team, obviously their title of the cereal was Power Hoops. Steve explained that he thought the character would be more edgy. Noor said that the character seems to be a little bit square. And Raj actually says that the character looks a little bit boxy, so it's almost like she is, okay, an animated character, but she's very like animated like as a square rather than like a casual looking person. And then for the boys team, they obviously went for Polar Crunch. Paul straight away just jumped in saying, how do we know it's cereal? With Verdi jumping in saying, well actually is it just fruit, because there's no bowl, no cereal, no, you know, spoon to show you that you're going to be eating cereal. And then Sam said that she added the fruit, or to add fruit that was in the actual branding of the food, so to add the different variations of ingredients that were in the cereal. And then again, Paul basically said here, like, I'm not really sure if it even looks like cereal, so they could have just had the word cereal or like passion fruit invested cereal or just something that said the word cereal or had a spoon on it. Back to the girls team, Noor said that their design looked a bit like cat food. Trey added there seemed to be a little bit too many flavours, it might be a little bit too healthy. And then Sam basically said, look, at the end of the day, they wanted to have fruit and things like that, and also a little bit of chocolate to ensure that the adults are happy on behalf of the kids. For the boys team, Maura basically explained that the main ingredient for the cereal was either passion fruit or banana, and I think they were trying to taste at this point. So Flo explained to their half of the team that the recommended amount was 15 grams, and they actually put in 3 grams of, I think it was the base. And then Verdi said it doesn't really scream passion fruit, even when you eat the balls on their own. And Sam said it's natural and it's healthy, and it will kind of give you a kick of the fruit rather than it tastes of banana, it tastes of cereal with a hint of banana. It's kind of like how she made it come across. And then in terms of the girls team with their game, Raj said she didn't actually understand the game. Steve said that 6 to 8 year olds would actually think maybe the game's a little bit too simple. And I think what the game was you had the character, their little female character with a cape. She was just collecting all the jewels, and then once they're collected, that's kind of it. I don't really understand the point of that. So that was their game. And then for the boys team, Phil basically said he's not sure they've actually met the age demographic, with Maura saying they have hit the age mark with the video. And I guess for that video, that was their little polar bear with the purple top. Paul was doing a little dancing around, lifting legs up and stuff, but I guess, yeah, the target audience is 6 to 8 year olds. That potentially could be like 3 to 4 year olds. So yeah, both teams had a little bit of an issue there. The girls team, the game being too simple. The boys team, the game being too childish. Raj basically said to Noor that 6 to 8 year olds are quite brutal, so they will be brutally honest with her and her half of the team as to whether the game is actually good or not. And then back to the boys team, Sam basically said to Verdi and Flo, it's not what you're selling, it's how you're selling it. So yes, the product might not be 100% exactly how any of them planned out for it to be, but it's how you kind of sell it. So for their target market, they went to a place where they had lots of kids to obviously try the cereal. So some of the feedback from the boys team, so Sam's team, was that some of the banana was hard to chew, there was no taste, the video game was silly, and they thought that the game was actually for more younger brothers and sisters rather than themselves. And then for the girls team, so this is obviously Steve's team, they said the superhero was smiling, the cereal was yummy, the game isn't fun to play, they didn't like the flavour, and one of the kids actually said the flavour was a little bit too strong. Phil came back and he basically said to Sam and the rest of their team, the cereal tasted bland, and Sam basically said, look, we're doing the cereal to taste rather than following measurements, which I guess came down to Phil. So that's basically why she said maybe the cereal doesn't taste as great as it should have been. And then they were doing their pitches. Each team were doing their pitches to different companies, which included the likes of Waitrose, Tesco, Ocado, and even Premier Inn. So Sam did the entry pitch for her team, and Steve was doing the pitch for his team, with Nora explaining why she was dressed up as the character that she travelled all the way to meet the audience. So a little bit cringy, because obviously she doesn't look anything like the character, but also the fact that if you're advertising cereal, you don't have to act in front of the adults, because these are people that are going to buy the cereal for the kids. So yeah, I didn't really think they needed to dress up as a character there. But with the boys team, Verdi, Flo and Paul were all doing a little talk with Tesco's, and Paul was having a chat with Iceland and basically explained in terms of the cereal that it could go global. Some of the children thought the cereal was bland, but they liked the price, and they actually liked the character as well. And then I think Sam basically said to the camera here, she was like, look, you know, Paul saying that the cereal was bland, that just meant the deal was over. Because if you're telling a potential client or a buyer that your product isn't what you're advertising it to be, they're obviously not going to buy into it. So at that point, they lost that deal straight away. And then for the girls team, Steve was chatting to Gatir, and they basically said to him that the character is not inspiring. Falusa and Raj had a quick chat with a company, and they basically wanted to have inclusivity or exclusivity on the items. So Iceland wanted to have 200,000 items, and I think Falusa at this point said, look, I'm going to have to go and talk to my manager. It's not a no, but I can't say yes as of now. She went to go and talk to Steve and the rest of their little team, and he said, look, if we can get them on for 3 months, 200,000 units, we'll say yes. It will just mean when you go and talk to other clients, there is exclusivity on one brand already, so you won't also be able to get exclusivity. Sam for her team was talking to Waitrose, talking to them about the polar bear theme, the tropical fruit, and that company actually said that it didn't really work. The two different company, you know, ideas didn't really work, having polar and tropical. Poundland also said the same thing to Phil. And Phil basically said the name is good, but they should have thought about that before. And he actually ended up trying to negotiate a deal with them anyway, with Verdi saying, look, why don't you just try a number of the units, rather than just not accepting the deal at all. And I think he basically said to Phil, yeah, try and get them to say a number. So in terms of this part, Phil did try and negotiate a deal, and he did say that they should have thought about the different branding between polar bear and tropical before actually creating the product. And I think as that deal ended, Verdi jumped in and said to Phil, look, next time try out a number, don't leave it in their hands to tell you yes or no, just say, okay, you're not interested, but would you like to try 10 units, for example, just have a number. For the girls team, again, Faluso and her girls, basically another company had offered them for exclusivity. They weren't obviously able to do that. And Rachel said that potentially they could have the units in 300 of their stores for Asda. And Trey asked if they'd be happy to take the order now, but place it in shops within 3 months, and they basically said no, so they lost that deal. Flo got 2,000 orders from Asda. Steve managed to get mixed feedback, and Rachel said that she doesn't think that her team have done enough to win the task. And then Paul basically said about his team that if the product and packaging was to lose, it would be down to Sam, purely because of the fact of that was up to her. Then we went to the boardroom, but just before we went, I did notice both Sam and Steve both gulped, as if like they both knew that there was issues wrong with what both of them did with their teams. So yeah, let's see now the numbers, who went through and who didn't. So straight away we come to the boys team. So Sam basically explained she put herself forward as project manager because it's a young people project, it's a young people themed project. Paul Sugar said, do you get pineapples and bananas in the Arctic? Sam saying we wanted the flavours to be neutral, but to have kind of like icy colours. Lord Sugar asked Paul, Lord Sugar asked Phil why only 45 grams, why the 45 gram recommendation to use as the base. They ended up not using not even half of that, and Phil basically said it was far too much, and he convinced the girls to go by taste. Sam also said that there was a lot of time wasted in the graphic designing. There was no time to add a bowl, and they were only able to add fruits, so not even to be able to explain that the item was a cereal. And Lord Sugar said it looked like a drunk bear, with no trousers on. Verdi explained that he was very proud of the AR directing this time round, with Karen adding that the kids actually enjoyed it, and Verdi said that he sold to one of the clients and Flo said sold to two. And then for the girls team, Steve said the power hoops was actually his idea. Lord Sugar said that it seemed to be that Steve was indecisive, gathering information and being able to speak to his team. And Rachel said there was lots of the task. There was lots of the task where Steve said, I don't like this, I don't like this. And she had to actually push him for ideas. And then Lord Sugar said that about the character Megabella, she actually looked a bit surprised to be on the cereal box with children potentially maybe getting bored by her. Falusa, Nor and Raj basically all explained the fact that one of the companies they were with needed exclusivity, and Steve basically said to them that he said to them to go ahead with it without question, and then Rachel added again that it obviously impacted them after that because then they couldn't have another company with exclusivity and potentially those orders would have come in a little bit slower. But I guess every time Steve jumped in, Rachel just jumped on Steve's back as if like, no, it's your fault, you're the problem here. So yeah, it was a little bit, I guess, unfair for Steve for her to go fully in on him. But in the end, for the girls team, so Tim was with the girls team this time, and they obviously got their 200,000 units or orders from that one exclusive company. Karen for the boys team managed to get 3 orders, and they only managed to get 7,800. And Steve basically explained, look, it was a calculated risk, but I'm glad it paid off. And obviously him and the rest of his girls and the people on his team won. Lord Sugar then noticed that for Phil and Verdi, they've had a 6 out of 6 losses so far. So serial losses or serial losses. And Steve basically said, look, he's sad people critiqued his PM style, but he's glad that he was able to at least give people a voice in the challenge. Rachel explained that Faluso smashed it with the big order, and Faluso said that she pushed herself out of her comfort zone and she was obviously proud of what she managed to do. For the other team, Flo said that the flavour was slightly too low. Sam said it was actually Phil's decision here to go for a little bit of a lower amount of item. Paul said he's not sure if it actually tasted like cereal. Sam added there was no time to add a bowl. Morris said it was down to the branding and the logo team, which obviously means it was unfortunately down to Sam. And again, Verdi also joined in saying he didn't think it was cereal. In terms of the actual cereal itself, Karen said it was very beige. And Lord Sugar wanted to know what the link was between the both Arctic and tropical fruits. With Morris saying that they played more, she wishes they would have played more with like snowflakes or having like a frozen bowl or something that would have brought the two worlds together. Phil said he had a 9-year-old and that the character and video was targeted at younger people's ages. And Morris said that she backed the dancing by Paul to obviously advertise the product, with Karen saying that the retailers didn't. So although Maura liked the video, Karen said, yeah, the retailers didn't like the video. And Phil basically stepped forward again and said, look, I take responsibility for putting less grams in of the cereal, but I guess there was other things in the task that were a little bit more important that potentially made it fail a lot more than just what I did. And then in the end, Sam decided to bring back Phil purely because of the branding and Maura as the sub-team leader. And then obviously they all analysed the situation. So Karen said about Sam that it was a terrible brand and a terrible product. Tim about Maura said, you know, the characters were a bit strange, it was a bit too young. And Karen said about Phil that he went against the expert advice and produced a product that was tasteless. So one of them branded crap, one of them the character was crap, and then one of them didn't even follow instructions. So potentially they could have all been fired here, but which one's the most important? Which one was the most valuable to get right in the task, and which two maybe you just work on a bit next time? So as soon as they all came back in, Lord Sugar said, look, Phil, you've lost 6 times in a row now. And he said, look, I've not been the failure of the task. I've not been a disruptor. I just obviously happened to keep being on the losing team. Sam said it's basically hard for her to manage Phil because he wanted to be the project manager. And as soon as, I guess, they didn't vote for him, he still tried to be project manager-y and kind of take control. And then Lord Sugar asked Maura why she wasn't the project manager. And she basically said she shouldn't have let Verdi direct, or she shouldn't have let Paul dance, but she should have actually taken a bit more control as that. And then Sam jumped in and said that, yeah, Maura was the sub-team leader, the character was not suitable to age, and that was obviously down to her. And ended up saying that Phil should be fired because he's had many chances to prove himself and he hasn't been able to so far. Again, Phil jumped in saying, look, nobody has said that I'm the failure of this task. I'm trying to take risks and I'm trying to do things a little bit more different. And he said that Sam should be fired from the task. And then Maura also said in terms of this task, Sam, because there was obviously no bun on the box, so it wasn't obvious that it was cereal. Yeah, Sam basically said that the buyers already said that the product is not going to stand out. Paul said that there was no flavour, and Maura, obviously the character, was just too young. And then Lord Sugar said that Phil failed a lot so much. He's failed so much in the process so far, and Lord Sugar needs to think about his position. And then for Sam, he admitted that he liked her honesty, but the cereal was boring and the cereal was bland, so Sam was actually unfortunately fired. And he basically said, look, Maura, you're going to be the next project manager of the next task, whatever it's going to be. And in the end, Sam basically said she was truly and utterly herself from the beginning of the process, and Paul basically said he had a feeling Sam would come back. Verdi said that Phil was on 6 losses, but he's a fighter, I'm sure he'll come back. Obviously then, Phil and Maura came through the door, 11 candidates remain, and unfortunately, yeah, Sam was the latest to be eliminated from the process. So, we have 11 candidates left. I'm not 100% sure who I think is going to win, but I think some of my front runners, still the same as when I first said it in the first couple of episodes. I think Flo is really, really good. I think Rachel was growing on me a little bit because I didn't really know much about her in the first couple of tasks. She was just kind of there, but I think she's one of the strongest as well. I do really like Steve. I think Phil is good because he does speak up for himself. And I do think Paul is quite good as well. He's very quiet, but he does get ideas. He is fun. He is full of energy. And then I guess the rest of them, for me at the moment, not really there, not really giving much for me. But you never know. It could all change, but as of now, my final 4 potentially stand as Steve, Phil, Flo and Rachel. So let's see what happens in episode 7. But until then, thank you very much for watching. Let me know down below who are your favourites so far. Who do you think should have gone this week? Who do you think should have stayed? And yeah, who are your favourites in terms of going into the next week of The Apprentice? So yeah, if you did enjoy, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. And until my next review, thank you for watching and goodbye.